Have you ever been so into a game that time seems to fly by? Or have you seen someone so transfixed on a game that if you tried to get their attention, it would take a while for them to respond? There could be a few reasons for this behaviour, both positive and negative. But what if I told you that some games were developed to make a person react this way, and it could be good for your mental health? In the 1970s, a psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi wanted to explore what causes happiness and what levels there were. He found that it's an internal feeling that requires external effort on a person's part, and that happiness isn't a rigid state. He studied athletes, musicians, and artists, asking them to tell him when they felt they were at their peak performance and how they felt at this time. He developed a theory of flow because reaching and leaving this peak performance came and went in waves, and the effort for them to create or achieve flowed from them with ease. This led to what we now refer to as cognitive flow, a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it even at great cost, for the sheer sake of doing it. This may sound familiar to many when they find a hobby or activity they really enjoy, and for gamers it might even be the core reason they come back to a series of games time and time again. So let's apply flow to gaming and see how accurate it is. Csikszentmihalyi found that there had to be a balance between a person's skill and the difficulty of a task in order to achieve flow. If a game is too hard and a player isn't skilled enough, this will result in anxiety. If the game is too easy and the player is used to a challenge, this will result in boredom. Skill and difficulty have to be around the same level for someone to achieve flow and really enjoy the game they're playing. He found that there were 6 characteristics that people would experience during flow, and 4 tasks that increase the balance of skill and difficulty, resulting in achieving and maintaining flow. These 6 characteristics felt during flow are: the hand-eye coordination needed to use a controller, the cognitive processes needed to understand what's going on in the game, and becoming fully engrossed in a story. Having anything to completely focus on helps depression, anxiety, and panics, as your brain doesn't have the chance to slip away to negative thoughts or catastrophize. It's not a cure-all, but when a person is hyper-aware of a problem, taking time away from this unconscious behavior can decrease the obsession and can also make the problem feel smaller. Being absorbed in a world where real-life problems don't exist can give someone a break from reality now and then, which is so beneficial for mental health. Knowing you're in control of the character's actions, making choices in-game, combat styles or loadouts, story pacing, and even what gear the character will wear. This control really gives a player a sense of something they can change if they don't like it, or experiencing different ways to play a game or complete a level. Control is important to people with mental health issues, as much of their life can feel like it's happening to them, and there's no choices they can make easily to redirect things. Having control over something as small as what armor a character wears can be the start of a healing process in introducing positive changes into a person's life. In some games, you have to keep your wits about you in order to escape defeat. Other games are relaxing and you can take your time. When you play a game and feel you're experiencing the story firsthand, or you can feel yourself within the world, your self-conscious feelings fall away. That is to say, all real-life worries or thoughts become quieter, and the world in front of you is all that your mind wants to focus on. This can help with depression and anxiety, as intrusive thoughts become background noise, and can allow some freedom from their negative presence. As previously mentioned, real-life problems don't always exist in game worlds. If you suffer from chronic pain, your character doesn't have to experience it too. Always wanted pink hair but never felt brave enough? If you can customize your character, they can have whatever hair you want them to. This freedom leads to an intrinsic confidence to take chances or try new and different things in game. This new exploratory approach can begin to spill out into real life, enabling people to feel braver when facing new experiences. This helps with mental health issues as the constant self-criticism or internalized negative thinking is shifted from the self to the game, where there's a safe space to behave differently or push boundaries you'd never think of pushing in real life. The realigned focus also gives people a break from any constant negativity they may deal with in life, both internal and external. Have you ever sat down to play a game in the morning and suddenly it's dark out? That's an extreme example, but for people experiencing flow, an hour can fly by without being noticed. There are no time constraints, no waiting for minutes to pass, no conscious awareness of how long it took to complete a level. There's just you and the game. This can have adverse effects, obviously, so don't use flow as an excuse to skip meals or shirk responsibilities. Apply rules for moderation. The main point here is that flow can change perception of time and not leave you bored or waiting for something to happen. People who suffer from depression and anxiety can sometimes be hyper-aware of time and their existence, losing time to depressive episodes or not experiencing things due to being too anxious. Finding flow can alleviate these thoughts and feelings, creating a more relaxed approach and taking focus away from what is seen as a loss in a precious resource. Experience of the task being the only necessary justification for continuing it. Said in a very long-winded way, you play the game because of playing the game. There is no other reason for you to want to play. No justifying how good games are for your mental health. No expectations to spend time with online friends. No using games as an excuse to avoid family functions. You just want to play the game because you want to play the game. This sits very closely to the control aspect, as you decide to play the game just because. Not having to find reasons to play a game is very liberating too. It doesn't feel like a chore or something you have to do in order to make your friends like you. You play for you, and you play for the game. So those were the characteristics of flow and examples of how they affect mental health. But there's an additional 4 characteristics that game developers may be savvy to. They found that games containing certain elements helped players achieve flow more easily. These 4 are: have you ever accepted a quest or mission only to be completely confused where to go or what to do? Maybe the NPC ran off and you can't ask them to repeat the task. This leads to frustration on the player's part and can immediately break flow. If a player can't figure out a puzzle or if there are weird control schemes that are hard to learn, they'll give up and move on to other games that keep them engaged. Being shown or told you're on the right path while enforcing simple in-game rules can keep a player focused on what has to be done and how. Linking goals to one another also helps with continuity, both story and player experience. Such tasks as collecting 5 apples, that then leads to contributing to a royal feast, or earning enough XP to wear a piece of gear that will give you a massive stat boost. Having icons or coloured in world markers, such as important things highlighted in blue, can also help lead a player along a route, without the game actively telling them where to go. Having the information to work out what is being asked of a player leaves no uncertainty in game, and also doesn't hold their hand unnecessarily. demand actions to achieve goals that fit within the person's capabilities. In simple terms, level scaling. If you start a game with low-level gear, there's no way you can fight an endgame boss. Unless you're a pro gamer with godlike skills, of course. But for the rest of us mortals, we take on quests, earn gold and gear, improve our stats and gradually work our way to the endgame. If a game throws everything it has at a player all at once, it can be very overwhelming and can suck all the fun out of what could be an enjoyable experience. Pacing difficulty with the player's level, or a little bit above for added challenge, having difficulty settings that can be changed in-game, offering upgrades and perks, and consistent enemy behaviours all help with finding that balance between skill and difficulty. This doesn't mean every enemy has to be the same, or every level is laid out identically, just that there aren't any nasty surprises along the way that will make a player have to learn something new halfway through the game. Doing this can cause stress and frustration, which can then lead to not wanting to play the game, or the dreaded rage quit. Have clear and timely feedback on performance and goal accomplishment. This is a massive part of many game genres. Being rewarded for finishing a mission or quest immediately on completion. If a player is made to wait for rewards or there's a delay due to a cutscene, they may get confused and completely miss receiving a level up or ability point. Have you ever played a game and seen a piece of gear or new item in your bag and had no idea where it came from? When a reward is given, the player has to be made aware of it, either before or during the reward process. Otherwise, an association will fail to be made. This can cause players to feel like their hard work completing a task had no positive result and was not worth doing. It's important to communicate that progress is being made by the player. And when taking part in a longer mission or quest, there are checkpoints that count towards the final part. This also helps not to overwhelm players with a massive to-do list. Once they complete part 1, it's checked off, and part 2 is highlighted, continuing until the end. Games should remove any extraneous information that inhibits concentration. Simply put, too many shiny things on screen may distract from what the game wants you to focus on. If there are loads of icons, the HUD is cluttered, or every ability makes a song and dance when it's used, it can take the focus away from something like combat or story points. Simple menus and minimal screen space taken up by unnecessary information helps a player focus on the game rather than the sparkly animations of a healing spell. If a player has to navigate through dozens of menu screens just to level up or put on new gear, they can lose interest in the game. The human brain can only keep tabs on so many things at once and can cause something called inattentional or perceived blindness. A video for another time. But simply put, if we try to keep our attention on too many things at once, our brains will start becoming blind to anything additional. So Csikszentmihalyi went rather in depth when he studied flow and happiness, initially applying it to professional sports or creative outlets. He lived until 2021, which means he saw his theory being implemented to video games. Something that was once seen as a passing phase or only for kids became a carrier for flow in people of all ages. So the next time you sit down to play your favourite game, just because, when time flies by effortlessly and your worries about the world are benched, you're finding your flow, and in turn, your happiness.